Hi everyone, peace be upon you. My name is Emel. Welcome to my channel. So, after releasing, letting go, and burning this lower, older self, it's time for us to heal. It's time for us to be washed by this healing water. Healing is actually a journey of returning. It's not about fixing. Sometimes we get stuck in this mental realm where we constantly need to find an issue to solve or a problem to fix. But in reality, these things are only mental traps that sometimes we get addicted to. We think of ourselves as a machine that needs to constantly be repaired. But in reality, healing is a journey of returning to your truth, returning to your true self, and ultimately returning to God, returning to Allah. The journey of healing reminds me of this memory or this experience that we all went through. You know, in some evening, your mother decide to go to the marketplace. So she takes you with her. You go to the marketplace and you get distracted by so many things. Pretty accessories, toys, perfumes, clothes, bags, whatever. You run from a shop to another shop, just being so mesmerized by all the pretty stuffs that these shops are selling. Then, suddenly, when you were running around the shops, getting distracted by the pretty accessories and pretty clothes, you lost your mother. And then when you realize that you actually lost your mother, you start to weep and cry and shout, "Mother, mother, mother, where are you?" Until your mother finds you, she scolds you a little bit, comfort you, hug you, and take you back home. This is a simulation of this healing journey. It's about returning. You know, this life, this illusionary life, this dunya, this maya is like a marketplace full of things that are seductive, alluring, distractive. So you run around this life getting distracted, getting swayed, getting hypnotized by all the pretty things until you realize at some point in your life, it's not a realization, I would say it's just a movement in the heart. Your heart starts to move. There is a little bit of stirring. Nothing is truly satisfying. The pretty things that you were chasing after, the goals that you try so hard to achieve, the relationships, the situation, the experiences, nothing is truly satisfying. Nothing is truly fulfilling. And your heart starts to stir. This fire is ignited in your heart. It's just stirring you, trying to tell you something. And you come into the point where you are longing for something more, something that is more fulfilling, something that will quench your thirst and satiate your hunger, because this water is no longer quenching your thirst. This food is no longer satiating your hunger. These shallow connections are no longer satisfying. The things you do is something just missing. This is when the soul start yearning and longing for something. Just like when you were a child getting anxious, realizing that you lost your mother, there is a little bit of anxiousness. There is a little bit of just movement, stirring. What is it that you are yearning for? What is it that you are looking for? And you search and you search and you search until you come into a point where you start to come into that realization: Allah, God, the mystery, the divine, And then you shout and scream and weep and cry, Allah, 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 Allah. Just like how you were shouting for your mother, now you're shouting for God. Then the interesting thing that life, yes, life is an illusion. She's seductive. But she also sense when your soul is yearning and you are looking for the truth, she starts to unveil herself to you and show you that the divine presence has been always there for you, encompassing you with his compassion. She shows you the beauty of the truth, the divine always there planning all this, play, directing your returning. Allah is the one who is directing this returning, plotting, moving you to a certain places, moving you to experience certain things to remind you and to make this heart stirring for you to remember, for you to shout and scream and weep, Allah, 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 until the shouting turns into remembrance, until the weeping and crying turns into laughter. And then when you finally come into that conclusion, it has always been there. It has always been there, but you were way too distracted to see it. This is healing. This is the journey of healing, when we come into the conclusion that indeed and truly to God we belong and to God we return. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi laraji'un. The journey that we are taking, we are returning to our truth, to our true self. But then there is another journey this true self take you towards, which is returning to Allah. In this process of returning, we start to listen more attentively to this voice, to the voice of intuition, to the voice of the heart. And we realize that the voice of the heart is actually scolding you now, just like how your mother was scolding you because you got distracted and you lost her. This voice of intuition, this voice of the heart, the divine voice that exists within us, start to scold us. Why would you abandon yourself in confusion when you are blessed with clarity? Why would you abandon yourself chasing after validation and approval when your whole existence been approved by the divine since ancient time? Why would you abandon yourself in places and spaces with people that didn't respect or understand your sensitivity, your attunement to this divine melody, and your soul that is yearning for truth and more? Why would you abandon yourself in the reactivity and these fickle emotions when you are the eternal peace beneath all this transitory? And why would you abandon yourself in the temporary when you are meant for eternity? When we start to listen to our intuition, when we start to listen to this voice, this divine voice that exists within us, we need to accept the scolding. We need to fully take accountability and realize that we didn't know better. We were just distracted. We were deluded by this hypnotic spell that world cast on us. We were just distracted. So we come into that acceptance. This scolding, it shouldn't put you in a loop of regrets and guilt. This scolding is actually teaching you something here. It's teaching you to realize your own truth, to remember. It is a scolding of remembrance. Remember who you truly are. Remember your truth. Remember your soul. Remember your pure heart. Remember who you are. It's about that. And when we accept who we are, when we accept what we did, how we didn't know better, how it was out of innocence. It wasn't just something that we did purposefully, you know. It's just how this world was designed. It's just about this plot, this movie that is directed by the divine. But now, since you know better, you should do better. And the healing starts with forgiveness. And forgiveness begins when you begin to forgive your own self for abandoning yourself in these situations, in these experiences, in these connections, in these shallow relationships, whatever, whatever, whatever. It has infinite expressions. Now, when we start to forgive ourselves, it's almost like we get washed by this water of forgiveness that reminds us of who we are. This water that is actually cleansing these accumulated layers of conditioning, programming, trauma, whatever it is. These are all layers that needs to be cleansed and washed away by this water, by this healing water. So it's not about, you know, fixing and repairing and adding things on top of these layers. It's about actually stripping away. It's about getting naked. It's about tajarrud. In Arabic, we call it tajarrud. And it's very, like, to me, it's the most accurate word to describe this state that we enter as we heal, which is returning to this truth, returning to the kernel of being, returning to the purity of existence. When we are stripping away all these layers of conditioning, all these layers of programming, and we're just peeling off these things, these patterns, we become more aware of our pattern, of our behavior, of our reactions. It's right now we are in the process of getting naked until we reach a point where we become sheer existence. When we let go of this character that we try to play, this show that we try to perform, the costume we wear, when we get rid of all these things, we let it melt away in the presence of this healing water. We strip away from that and we return to the kernel of being, to the core of existence. We become just utter presence. We enter into this state of complete quiescence. We enter a state of radical sincerity. And it's a process. It's not about jumping into this state. It's a process. Healing is a process, and it requires you to be quiet, requires you to be compassionate towards yourself. Compassion starts with yourself. It requires you to be forgiving, and forgiveness starts with forgiving yourself. It is a process that we need to slowly walk towards until we reach this core of existence, or this kernel of being, until we reach this point where we become merely a sheer existence, where there is no personality trait to cling into. There is no need to prove how unique and different you are. You as an expression, as an existence, as a being, is already unique without any attempt to try so hard. So it is a process. And in this process, we learn certain ways that help us to take off these layers. And through meditation, through remembrance, dhikr or mantra, or whatever your practice is, we can enter such a state of sheer existence and return to our truth, and we heal and let all these wounds, let all these conditioning and programming melt away. So, in order to return to our truth, return to Allah, in order to return to the divine, there are ways that help us to walk towards this kernel of being, or this utter presence that always in a state of remembrance and completely surrendered to the divine, to God, to Allah. Meditation is one of the powerful things that we need to practice more often. And there are ways that I recently been practicing and learning. There are openings in our body that sometimes our energy leaks from. And these openings are your eyes, your nose, your mouth, and your ears, and sometimes your hands. The energy leaks from your eyes when your gaze is constantly wandering around, constantly searching for something, constantly searching for stimulation, for entertainment. Your mouth, when you are unnecessary engaging in mental chattering externally and internally, you're just constantly chattering, whether it's sometimes gossip, sometimes in things that aren't really like even nourishing or fulfilling to the soul, just mental chattering. This is where your energy leak from. Your nose, when your breath is shallow and short, because it's aligned with your mind, and when your mind is constantly stirring, is constantly moving, your breathing becomes shallow and short, because in reality the thoughts that is running around in your mind has the element of air, and when the breath is aligned with this air, with these thoughts, it becomes shallow and short. Also, your ears is an opening that your energy can leaks from. And it happens when you just constantly listening to this mental chattering and participating in that mental chattering, whether it comes from within or it comes from without. Also, your hands, when you are constantly just holding your phone, just the first thing you wake up, you reach to your phone and hold it and just scrolling. This is an opening where your own energy can leak from this opening. So we have kind of 5 openings that we need to close when we meditate. Our wandering eyes, we need to fix our gaze here, or fix our gaze on the divine, or in whatever feels like you can focus and concentrate on. To me, I fix my gaze on Allah, on the divine. Always just Allah, Allah, Allah. Your breath, when you consciously start to breathe, when you remember to take a deep breath, here, when we start to lock this air and stop the leaking of energy to spill all over the place. Your mouth, here we need to fast a little bit from the chit-chatting, the gossiping, the whatever you participate in. We need to sometimes let go of this need to just fill the gaps, fill the silence gaps with chattering, with chit-chatting, with unnecessary talks. We need to be more comfortable with just sitting in silence and in quiescence. So here, when you start to preserve this energy and help and hold it from leaking, your ears, this is something very important, because it is the one that will help you to listen to your intuition, to this voice of the heart, to the guidance of the divine. So your ears, sometimes it's good to stop consuming, stop listening, because you consume from your ears too. So stop listening to music, songs, just fast a little bit. Of course, music is a beautiful, there is no doubt, but sometimes we need to take a break from that so we can turn inwards. And when we turn inwards, we start to listen to our inner dialogue, to our inner speech. What is the quality of it? Is it in constant fear and doubt and anxiety and what's going to happen, or is that voice constantly chasing after a future or constantly talking about a past? Just there is a conflict in this inner dialogue. Here we observe it, and slowly as we observe, it's like we need to give it our attention in order to quiet down. Attention, when we give attention to this inner dialogue, naturally it actually quiets down. It's a process, you know. So gently and slowly you will reach there as you practice more often. So when we reach to that quietness, we reach to that inner silence, the voice of the heart, the voice of intuition start to speak, and we start to be more intuitive, we start to be more guided. We know what feels right, what resonates with our heart, and just doesn't resonate. So this is a guiding voice. This is the voice of guidance that exists within us. This is the voice of the divine that exists within us. So we are here with guidance, and it is our intuition. Also, our hands, when we fast or stop from literally just scrolling down, when we stop ourselves, we put your phone away if you feel like you don't have control, especially in the morning. It shouldn't be the first thing you reach out to. Your hands and your body in general has a memory, has an ancient memory of wisdom, and your hands has this memory of a creation. Creativity resides in your hands. So when, instead of constantly, just sitting on our phone scrolling, you need to maybe write something, draw, use your hands, cook something, whatever. Try to use your hands more. This is a way to actually awaken your hands. That's why a lot of healers and practitioners use their hands to heal. Reiki, I think they use their hands to heal, because your hands has such an incredible power that we don't actually know about. Chakras are not only the seven chakras. Your hands has a chakra, and once your hands gets awakened, you start to create. So these five places our energy leaks from, we need, as I said and as I explained, we need to preserve that energy from leaking. And when we sit with it, when we start to preserve this energy, we begin in this process of crystallization, which is this light that will help us and direct us towards returning. And this is a practice everyone can do. It's very simple. And don't think that you need to immediately do everything. No, focus on one thing. To me, right now, the best thing to focus on is your ears. Focus on your listening, because the voice of intuition is speaking so loud and so clear. So when you meditate, bring your attention back into your ears and start listening. And when we enter this deep state of quiescence, just deep state of almost deadly silence, where there is no chit-chatting, there is no mental chattering, there is no stirring and movement inside of our world, of our mind, we naturally start to return into that utter presence. We enter this state of stillness, which is necessary, especially for the sensitive people out there. Personally, I'm very extremely sensitive to everything, to the subtle. Like, I'm the most sensitive person ever. So I ground myself in this darkness. And the darkness, I mean, it's utter stillness. It's like the dark night when it's in this state of serene presence. It's like you're almost entering a state of sleep, but you're very conscious, you're aware. It's like the moon that is illuminated in the night sky. You become like that. You enter a state of deep stillness where you become so rooted and so grounded. It's like the roots of the tree, they are hidden in the earth. You don't see them. We don't see the roots. They are hidden in the darkness. We enter this state of darkness, not the darkness that manifest in an archetype and you start to perform character. No, this is a darkness of deep stillness. And when we enter into this dark night, but conscious, fully conscious of it, here we start to return to this kernel of being where we don't need to participate in this circus. We don't need to be entertained by the clown that is juggling around. We are just in the presence of the divine. We sober up from this spell. We become so conscious, and our consciousness start to expand. Our awareness start to gets heightened, and our presence becomes so deep in here and now, to a point where there is no such a thing as here and now. It's just a concept too. So it is a process, and it plays out with these three dimensions: presence, awareness, consciousness. When your awareness gets heightened, your insights become sharp and your intuition becomes more awakened. When your consciousness is expanded, you have the ability to embrace with grace and be more forgiving and more compassionate. When your presence is so rooted, you return into that state of sheer existence and complete and whole, absolute sincerity. And you become this serene soul. And there's a verse in the Quran that describes this serene soul. If I can explain how we can enter into this serene state, it's like the story of a creation when God breathed his spirit in our father Adam, and then he was alive. It's like that. There's a verse that describes how God is like almost evoking the serene soul for it to return to the Lord, to return to Allah. And this verse says, يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي, which means, oh serene soul, come back to your Lord. This is how Allah breathes the spirit of life, the spirit of healing back into you when He breathed this soul, this serene soul. Return to your Lord. Come back to your Lord. This is a journey of returning. This is a journey of healing. راضية مرضية, satisfied and fulfilled. This is the true fulfillment. The true fulfillment when we return and go back to the truth, and when we return and go back to Allah. فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. So enter my servant. It's like this is how the spirit was breathed into us. This is how the divine command this serene soul or the serene spirit to enter our heart. وادخلي جنتي, so and enter my heaven. This is a heavenly state. So when we are returning, it's like we are returning into this heavenly state, which is serenity, complete serenity and complete remembrance of that indeed to God we belong and to God we return. This is the journey of returning. We are returning to that truth. We are returning to Allah. and it is a process. So we need to slowly walk in this process without bypassing. We need to understand what is death and what is birth in order to get out of the cycles of death and birth. So it is a process that requires you to be patient, that requires you to be quiet, and requires you to be compassionate with yourself. And slowly, 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 we're going there, slowly climbing until there is no such a thing as climbing. So that's it for today's video. Thank you for listening to me. Peace be upon you.